All right. We're going to go through Washington, Philadelphia. We're going to go through Buffalo at Kansas City. I will pull one important stat from Evan Abrams' brilliant roundup of stats, trends, and notes heading into the conference championship game, which you can read now on actionnetwork.com, read it in the Action Network app, as it pertains to underdogs. So since 2003, underdogs in the conference championship are 20 and 22 against the spread. The only round of the playoffs below 500 against the spread in that span in the Super Bowl era since 1966. Underdogs 53, 62, and 1 against the spread in the conference championship. Does that surprise you, Simon?
A little bit, but like you just think too about how random it is. I think, obviously that Bengals Rams year went 2-0 dogs. Last year was 2-0, right? Am I wrong, Evan? I think last year was 2-0. Chiefs as a dog
Yep.
against the Ravens. And I mean, me and Chad know we or maybe Chad was on the other side, but I remember the back door. The Lions were up 10 and we needed a back door to cover against the
No,
49ers
we were
last
both
year.
on the Niners.
No, I was definitely on the Lions.
What was the Oh, right. We were on the Lions and we were thrilled because it was going well, but we were
Yeah, they're
both
up 10, then they
anxious.
had to back door to get the
Yeah,
like 7 point cover, whatever it was. But yeah,
exactly.
it's so we're off to we have a couple of years here since COVID where the dogs have been covering. But what I take from that from Evan is basically the laws of averages. Like we're due for a 2-0 favorites week, right? That's the way I'm looking at it yeah, the dogs just went 4-0 against the closing number. I mean, we're gonna get into it here, but it's like if the line keeps moving on, obviously this Washington team, that's going to be value on the dog here. But right now, I think we both talked Sunday night. I thought there was value on the favorites. So
Yeah.
it's not shocking to see the early money coming in on the favorites.
Dogs 7-3 in the playoffs so far, including 4-0 against the closing number this past weekend. I'll reiterate. I was going through my notes yesterday and looked back at the notes from Sunday night based on Evan's tweet about dogs going 4-0 against the closing number. But the way those games landed, that's a Hall of Fame betting weekend. The fact that it came down to Ravens, who opened at +2, missed a 2-point conversion in a flukish drop by a guy who doesn't drop passes, and a game in which their loss was partially set up by that same guy fumbling, which he hadn't done since 2019. The Chiefs getting a safety self-induced for that game to land on 9 when the number was between 8.5 and 9.5 all week. The Eagles pushing at 6 because of Jake Elliott missed extra points. And then, by the way, the college football playoff last night, that game closed at 8.5, opened at 9.5. It was at 8, and with 90 seconds left, it's third and long-ish, and you're thinking maybe we got a shot here to cover. As a Notre Dame backer, they go 56 yards and score a game-clinching covering field goal. What it like the drama around the edges of these numbers has just been insane. It's been so exciting.
And it's also why, there's plenty of crazy people out there that believe there's some guy in the Swiss Alps with a time machine that makes these lines because you see a weekend like this, it's literally just shows how smart the bookmakers are and why we give so much respect to them. We talk about it because all these games are half a point here, and like you just said, it's stupidness, randomness to land on those exact numbers, right? Two missed 2-pointers, miss extra point, and yeah, that's why we talk all the time that. People are like, why do you guys get so spooked off the number? This past year was just weird where the numbers didn't really matter. When these island games happen, though, and the books are really locked in, right? They're just all focused on, hyper focused on these games. There's always going to be outliers like that Commanders game, but usually the 1 to 2 points are going to matter, especially in the playoffs. And like we just said, this past weekend, we personally on the show, or I did, I should say, went 3-0-1, right? The one push against the Eagles should have been a 4-0 weekend. But the books are just so sharp. They make it so tough on paper. Depends when you got our numbers. You might have went 2-2, right? You lost
Yeah.
on the Chiefs. You lost on the Eagles. Like it's brutal because the books are just that sharp right now. So yeah, we talked Sunday night. The numbers we gave out, Chad, they got slammed, and that's just how it is in this point, the time of year where it's like the books are smart. They'll take the professional money earned in the week, and they'll move heavy off respected money. And yeah, like I can't wait to dive into these games because it's the best time of year. You get the best football, and you get the smartest bookmaker wise, like number wise. So it really is the best.
Washington at Philly. The number is -6. The total is 47.5. Eagles 6-point favorites. We talked about it on Sunday night. I bet this as soon as it opened at 4.5. For two reasons. I wondered if bookmakers were keeping it a bit low in case they were worried about Jalen Hurts not playing. Since the line posted before that Eagles Rams game was over. Um, I had been wanting to fade Washington since the second its game with the Lions ended.
Yeah.
Like when you beat the number one seeded team as badly as they did in a high scoring game in prime time with 33 million people watching, there is no way they are not going to be overvalued the next day. So I was a little dismayed. You and I chatted on Sunday night, and I was all in on betting the 4.5. And then even in the conversation, I got 7 books in front of me looking at Action Network and sort of running across the screen. 5 of them were at 5 or 5.5, including Bet365. Only 2 were at 4.5. And I felt like you, even though you said your rating was at 7, you weren't banging the drum to go after the 4.5.
Yeah, because I know my quarterback. I watched him after the game laugh and give insane answers to the media woman interviewing him. And it's like, this
He's
dude's
on
on a
drugs.
ton of drugs. This dude is drugged the fuck up. Like, his knees got to be bad. Because Jalen's not the type of dude that's like, yeah, shoot me up with whatever. I need to get out there. He's the kind of guy that he just wants to fight through. And if he's in that much pain, I was like, holy shit, I need them to do some tests before I'm putting heavy money onto this team. Because like we talked about, like, yeah, I made the number 7. It was 4.5. Obviously, I'm going to take a position on it. But my whole point was, I'm not going to hammer this one like I was with the Chiefs number because I'm just like, this. You know, you nailed it. Obviously, this number is all the way up to 6.5 at most books. But you know, that's part of my job. Like, I put the number out there that I had at 7. If we come in today and it's 3.5, I look like a fucking idiot. It's like that number, it went 3.5 against what I just said. Luckily, it's gone the other way, and I think that, you know, what you just talked about gives us more confidence about Hurts that he is going to be healthy in this spot. So, yeah, there are so many different things we could dive into this game. Where do you want to start? You want to start at Commanders or Eagles side?
I want to start with the person I think might be the most important player on the field for the Eagles, who is Jalen Carter, and the fact that Commanders are going to be without Sam Cosmi, their right guard.
Yeah.
And to me, normally a right guard would not mean as much on passing downs, but with Carter, it's so different. And Evan had this great stat in his packet. The fourth most pass block snaps for any guard this year were from Sam Cosmi. That's a 51 guards with at least 500 pass blocking snaps. He was 1 of 11 with 1 sack or fewer allowed. So to me, I look, we already love the Eagles for a variety of reasons, but to me, it begins and ends with this defensive line, and that begins and ends with Jalen Carter.
Yeah, just brutal. Like, brutal loss, that offense. It's basically, it feels like in the hierarchy, it goes Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, then him. Like, that was the 3 most important parts, in my opinion, to their offense. And you nailed it. Like, how dominant that guy's been in pass pro now. We know Jaden Daniels helps those numbers, right? Like, if you have it's like Josh Allen. Like, if you have a quarterback that can move, it's going to make the lines and numbers look way better and kind of give them the free bump. But when you really dive into it, this guy is so legit. And the fact that he's going to be missing here, it's so much of. And I just want to touch on what you touched at the top of it about, we already knew we were probably going to be on the Eagles just because the Jaden Daniels is get more of a value in the spot. I mean, even Screaming A. Smith on ESPN is saying he likes them to win the Super Bowl now, that this is the team of destiny. You're dead. You are absolutely dead. When the man who doesn't watch football in 15 years is saying you're the team of destiny, you are absolutely dead. So I feel bad for the Washington Commanders, but they can live in this moment. You never know. That's what's so great about the playoffs in this exact spot. Like, we're a couple of just talking heads. Fuck if we know. Like, the game can have weird bounces, and they can easily win this game. They've put themselves in this position. But this is a game when you dive into the numbers, they are dead on arrival. Like, there really is so many things that need to go their way for them to pull off this upset, just because they are so underwhelmingly matched in so many different areas of this football game. And we just talked about them being overvalued. Chad, have you looked at futures at all for next season?
Oh my God, it's fucking insane.
They're
The,
16 to
the,
1, these Commanders.
the Commanders, the hype
16 to
on the
1.
Commanders is absurd right now.
So they're above the 49ers, the Packers, the Bengals, just to name a few right now in the future bowl super odds next year. It's peak. Like, we know the deal. Like, Jane Daniels will be lucky to make the playoffs next year, because we know regression is going to hit him like crack in the 80s. He is going to be hurting next year. Like, the league is going to figure him out in a bunch of different ways. And that's just how it is in this league. Like, we talk all the time. These are the best of the best. The coaches are paid millions of dollars to sit back there and figure out ways. And, this could be peak. That's why, like, I don't want to be shitting on this Commanders thing too much. We've seen it so many times that, Dan Marino, the greatest quarterback when I was growing up in my lifetime, like watching on him in film, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady replaced him, in my opinion, of being the next, like, the greatest. But Marino, you go back and watch the tape, it's flukish that he never made it back to the Super Bowl. That's why Washington fans, you should enjoy this. You're literally a win away from the Super Bowl. I'm sorry I'm about to dive into these numbers and just shit on your team in a bunch of different ways, but that's what we're here to do, Chad. And I just want to start right with their defense. Something me and you talked about, their run defense. That is the biggest thing that jumps out to you when you dive into any of these numbers. And I know, there are some numbers that say they do get better in the second half. They are able to make adjustments, and their run defense does improve in the second half. But just over the course of the season, 26 in run defense, DVOA. Okay, that's alarming. 23rd in adjusted line, 31st in second level yards allowed, so past the 5 and 10 yard marker.
Which is where Saquon Barkley
lives. 26 in open field yards allowed. So
Saquon Barkley lives.
Yeah. I mean, it couldn't be worse. I mean, Evan just put in our chat, rushing prop for Saquon, 127 yards.
Might be too low.
It might be too low. It's like, to me, I was trying to find an angle for the Commanders just because, Hurts is banged up. Janie Daniels is the difference maker. We've never seen a rookie quarterback like him, but that defense is a real issue. Now, when we really break this down and look at the games, me and you were all over Tampa against this Commanders team. And we even said it. If Baker just played a little bit smarter, that's a no-brainer win cover.
Double digits.
Yes. Like, we both feel the same exact way about that.
I feel like I'm your chorus right now. Anything you say, I'm just like, amen. Preach it, brother.
In. But it's just, like, you really dive into it, and I get the hype, but that's what people have to push through the media bullshit of the shiny new toy. No one wants to see an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl. I'm an Eagles fan. I would love nothing more for a rookie quarterback to be playing the Bills. All the Bills history.
Bullshit.
Honestly, I'm an Eagles fan. So, yes, deep down, I want the Eagles clearly. But I'm saying, as a fan of football, no one, dude, it killed me last year having to talk 49ers Chiefs again. No one wanted to talk that again. So it's like, that's part of it. I get where the media is coming from, hyping up this team right now. But when you really go through it, they needed Baker to have a disaster game to have that type of game. They needed Goff to melt, like absolutely melt. And we joked about it. If they just handed the ball off that entire game, I really do think they probably win that game in the Detroit Lions. And they're now in a spot playing an Eagles team that is +6 in the turnover rate. But I think we could both agree, Chad, they've not played their best football in 2 weeks in the playoffs. Like, they've left a lot of plays on the field. Like, they have struggled in different ways. And now is it coming to a team that, honestly, if this was the regular season, this would be the perfect spot to back this Eagles team, in the sense of they match up great against them. And this is the kind of spot where they get back into their groove of what they've been this regular season. And, the fact that the defensive numbers are what they are for the rush defense, that's everything to me. Because I agreed with a lot of what you said about the Ravens and Bills. Like, the Bills' biggest weakness was the rush. And that's why I got where you're coming from. It's the same thing here. And Hurts, on the flip side, he's been the gift that he's been doing. He's not turning the ball over. That's why these Eagles teams have been winning these last 2 games. So, yeah, it's when you dive into it, and we're going to the Commander side right now, it's the first thing that jumps out to me. Yes, we're all impressed by Jane Daniels, but it's really this defense that they're totally being overlooked here. Like, no one's bringing up their defense just because we're all so enamored with Jaden Daniels right now.
Yeah, the defense got so torched by the Lions running game. The Lions almost pulled not almost. They kind of did pull what the Ravens pulled the year before against the Chiefs in the championship game. All they had to do was keep giving the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs. And they kept, they got too cute by half a couple of times, especially on that Jameson Williams pass, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, those things are game killers in the playoffs. The Eagles don't have that benefit. Jalen Hurts is hobbled. Like, and by the way, we still don't have official confirmation he's playing this weekend. We just haven't been given confirmation that he's got structural damage or anything that would keep him from playing. So we have to assume that he's playing. And by the way the numbers moving gives every indication that he is playing.
Like
And as
real respected money, right? Is
yeah,
moving on
that's
the
what I was
Eagles.
going to
Like,
say. Like
yeah.
we've seen on the show how often Simon is able to indicate ahead of the market because he has sources throughout the NFL, as do a lot of professional bettors. It's not just Adam Schefter. Like everybody has sources in the NFL. I knew over the weekend what was going on with the Bears. Like the people have
People like
this
to
information.
talk. People like to
Yes.
talk.
And so like it's people aren't betting heavy on the Eagles right now because they're guessing Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
might play. The Eagles don't have the same predilections as the Lions, right? They don't have the same kind of offense. Their offense is run behind Jordan Mailata, run behind Lane Johnson, give the ball to Saquon Barkley, let him get 127 and a half yards in one play. And on the 3rd and 4, roll Jalen Hurts out, and like keep moving the ball, wait for that big play, beat down the other side of the defense. So yeah, they're just good. And the Commanders defense is so bad.
And even if Hurts is banged up, we just talked about it. They'll shoot him up. And to
Yeah.
me, we've seen time and time again. I mean, one of my favorite bets ever. I lost to Chad. We went head to head. I like Cleveland. He liked the Browns. It was Deshaun Watson's last game, maybe ever, for the Cleveland Browns. And basically, they're down, I think, 10 at half. And Watson breaks his collarbone. They shoot him up. He comes out and is basically perfect
Brilliant.
against the Ravens the second half. And you've seen that time and time again. My favorite too, Aaron Rodgers against your Bears team, came out that second half all messed up, was perfect in the game, flawless in the second half. And it's just because it turns off that thinking piece, right? And, we joked about that Eagles game. People, I told you they were going to do it. They were going to shit on Hurts after that game last week because he didn't have the numbers, negating A.J. Brown dropped that touchdown, negating he had another drop for another 20 yards. Smith had a drop that was another 20, 30 yards. It's like, that's just how it is, right? Because a lot of these guys don't watch these games, which sounds crazy, people, but I'm telling you, they just don't. They're living the good life. So to me, even if Hurts is hampered here, we broke it down what we think this is going to be. This is going to be a lean, heavy on-run game. Hurts, same thing he's been all season, especially in the playoffs here. 15 to 16 completions, maybe 25, 24 passes total. That's what the Eagles want to be. And we saw with Josh Allen, the Bills. The teams have figured out where if you're just smart, protect the ball and run it, let the other team make the mistake. It's impossible now to pick up big chunk plays usually. Let them dink and dunk down the field and wait for them to make a mistake. I do think it's stolen from the Chiefs. Like that's what the Chiefs
Yeah.
model has been the last 2 years. And all these teams have leaned into and adapted to it. And that's not Washington's game. Like that's not who Jay Daniels is. So I like the hype. I just love it all right now because it is fueling the public reception. Even the Action app, I was looking before it came on. The tickets all on Washington, even though it's moved against them. Because you look in the Action app, the money right now is on the Eagles. So it is professional money, obviously, early here. And I know you love referee stats. Have you seen any of the ref stats for this game yet?
I just saw the one about Sean Hockley that Evan had as the only one I've seen.
Yeah. So Eagles 6-0 with Sean Hockley, 5-1 against the spread. Commanders 1-2, 0-3 against a straight up 0-3 against the spread with him. And again, doesn't really matter. That's kind of like a random, just stupid stat. But there's a lot of ones this week that are just like that kind of back up that, this is just a bad spot for this Commanders team. The biggest one I took from Evan was the Commanders are the 8th team since 2000 entered a playoff game on their 4th road game in a row. 4th road game in a row. So pretty big deal. Those previous 7, 0-7 straight up, 1-5-1 against the spread in this exact spot. So the Commanders are just already in a really tough spot. And there's already a lot of factors going against them, defensively, offensively. So, yeah, we talked about it. This rookie, the greatest we've ever seen, never seen anything like it. He literally needs to be perfect in this game for them to pull off this upset. So that's why right now I think we're both in agreement. It's still under 7. I still think the value is on this Eagles team at 6. So that was a long-winded way to get there. But that's what I wanted to get into is just there's so many different numbers backing this Eagles team in this spot. Not just what we know is bettors, which is this is going to be an overvalued team. And on the flip side, Eagles, who didn't cover for about 90% of the bettors who took them, and they look bad. They have a banged up quarterback. They're now the underrated team, favored at home in a spot that's great for them. So a very unique spot for backing this Eagles team.
2 things I'm glad you brought up. Number one, there are, when you get to this stage, a shitload of red herring stats, right?
Yeah, great way to put it.
The hockey stat, the other stat about the 4 straight road games, they're good information, but they're not the information you base your decision on. And oftentimes, our first instinct on these after, at this point, what is it? 19 weeks, 20 weeks of watching football and seeing these games and seeing how the market is moving. Your first instinct on the number. I have found it much easier during the playoffs to bet with confidence on Sunday night than I was during the season because there's only so many games. At this point in the season, you have a good sense of which way the market is going to move based on who won and the perception of that team going forward. And so this was an obvious one. I will give you one last stat because this one felt like it was a big enough sample size. The Commanders have won 7 in a row. 15 teams have entered a conference championship game on a 7+ game straight up win streak since 2004. 4-11 against the spread, failing to cover by 4.5 points. So last week you talked about an alt line on the Eagles at, I think, -10. That's how this might line up too if we want to get a little funky and we're starting to feel really confident about the Eagles.
Yeah, there's a lot of meat on that bone for sure.
Hey, as an Eagles fan, now that I can bask in the glory of having probably the best offensive mind in a generation and a guy who, like, already getting fitted for Super Bowl rings, Nick Sirianni has clearly bought himself another year. And all this week, because the media is so predictable, glowing stories about Nick Sirianni and how he connects with his players and Nick Sirianni and how he has remained calm and comfortable throughout this entire hot seat process. How do you feel about Nick Sirianni continuing to be the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles?
I'm tough to get off my views of people. Like once I have a view on you, you rub me the wrong way, I'm kind of stuck in on it, and I'll never get there with them, unfortunately. Even if we get to Super Bowl, maybe that will be it. Maybe if we win it, I'll be like, okay, I do give this guy too much, but I'm still of the mindset of it's all Howie, baby. Like Howie is just giving him the best possible car you can drive, and his whole job is just not to fuck this up. And that Rams game, Chad, I was about 20 seconds away from him being fired. Like they score that touchdown there at the end, and we lose that game. I mean, unless he knows something about Jeffrey Lurie we don't know, you got to fire him after that type of loss. You lose when you're up 13 with 4 minutes to go and you blow that. That would be on him. But yeah, I mean, I've seen all the stats. He has the most wins in NFL history in his first 4 seasons coaching. But I mean, we all see what's happening here. It's like one of the best teams you can put onto the field. It's all built by Howie. And, you know, I'll give him his roses that he is a good team coach and he's kept these guys in his right mindset. And we're a game away from the Super Bowl here. But yeah, it's still like that game, that Rams game, Chad. That's why it's hard for me with him sometimes because those games snowball and they keep showing him on the sideline with his dumb look on his face. I'm just like, there's nothing happening right now in this guy. This guy is not, there's nothing he can do right now. This is totally out of his control. And yeah, it's incredible what he's done. You know, he might go back-to-back Super Bowls in 2 years. It's pretty impressive, obviously.
It's like By the way, you mentioned Dan Marino as like in your lifetime. Dude, Dan Marino's my lifetime. He's not your lifetime.
I
You
drafted Dan Marino in fantasy football, so shut the fuck up, Chad. He's in my lifetime.
When did you draft Dan Marino in fantasy football? He retired in like, when did he retire? In like 98?
98? 98.
Jesus Christ, you were three.
I appreciate that. A little older than that, but no, I got him.